Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box. Glad you're with us. I'm Bill Pucko, Tariq Spence, WDKX in the middle.
Hey, happy to be here, willing to talk sports and whatever topic comes up.
What makes you think it might not be sports? Pat Duffy on the end.
That'll be more than just sports.
Pat Duffy, number 57.
Yeah, this is, well, first of all, game-worn jersey, which, you know what I'm into. It's my favorite Buffalo Bill on and off the field, probably of the last 25 years. Lorenzo Alexander, man. Who doesn't love Zoe? Love me some Zoe. And Zoe's been doing some work off-field now that he's retired this week, like all over the place, literally all over the country. It's great.
Yeah, wasn't he like one of the most personable guys ever to wear that uniform?
Like, not
very
personable.
Charismatic.
Introspective, charismatic, yes. Like, he had a way of taking complicated ideas, because I'm not a very smart person. You guys know this. You know me for a while. He had a way of taking very complicated ideas and just simplifying them to a point where it was like, oh, yeah, of course. Why would I not think that way? I love Lorenzo Alexander. Love him.
Tariq, we've danced around this subject, a lot actually on the show about, through the Michael Jordan documentary, the ability and maybe the responsibility of athletes, especially professional athletes, to speak out on social issues. So we bring that up around again today. I think it's important to point out that you work for WDKX, which was founded in 1974, minority ownership, and has been African-American owned for the Langston family, tremendous family representative in Rochester, has always represented the minority perspective on things. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, I mean, what's great about working at the station is you get to hear so many different points of view, and we encourage people to call in. But we're talking a bit about the athlete, and this is nothing new. Like, Bill, you know full well, there have been black athletes that have talked about this for years. Jim Brown has been very vocal about it. We love Jim Brown. We know Bill Russell has been active about it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has been active about it. We've had Muhammad Ali speak about this. So I'm going back and now into our era where LeBron James has talked a bit about this. Dwayne Wade has talked a bit about this. Colin Kaepernick, which I'll get to on Unfinished Business, has talked about this. So we have these athletes that have said these things and championed it more. You have them out going to social media events on their social media at protests, not rioting, protests, where they're peaceful protests and discussions. So do athletes have a responsibility? A lot of them have taken up this responsibility. Some have not, and that's their choice to do so. But if they're going to do it from the heart. And I don't mean for just black athletes. I mean for all athletes, for Latin athletes, for white athletes, for athletes from this country, people who've immigrated to this country. This isn't a fight for just black America. This is just a fight for human rights. And that's what this is really all about. That's just all that these athletes are talking about, being treated fairly, which is supposedly what this country is built on. So it's the athletes stepping up. I love it. I love to see it. I like to see more of it. Some of them have offered money. Some of them have gone into their foundations, and they've done that. Mostly NBA players I've seen the most. But this is an issue that shouldn't go away until we truly address the fairness of being treated equally in this country.
Tariq, how is this time different?
I think now because it's visualized more. I think when you had the 50s and the 60s, you were resorting on the news and people could ignore the news or they could ignore the paper if they wanted to. This time around, the death of George Floyd was seen on multiple views. It wasn't just the news. It was on social media. People were talking about it. And it was a clear understanding of mistreatment. And something that went completely over the line. And I don't understand how anybody can have a debate against that. So, I mean, it's different now because there's more eyeballs available to it through internet and social media, and people get to comment on it quicker and ask for quicker results.
Pat, what's your audience telling you?
Well, I mean, it's exactly like Tariq said. Like, you are watching this live on social media happening. And it's like the social media thing is making me appreciate guys like Ali and like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and like Bill Russell more because, today, if there's an athlete that wants to stand up and make a statement on whatever social injustice or issue that they want to talk about, LeBron James has the ability to pick up his phone and look, it's tough to expose yourself like that and expose yourself to both the good and the bad that's going to be coming back, but he can directly write to his fans and followers and it says what he meant there. Whereas guys like Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell had to use the media like Tariq was talking about, and you don't know how your words were going to be taken and how the guy on television was going to react when you were speaking in that clip, right? Like, I think easier is the wrong word. It's more, these athletes are more accessible now. It allows them to be heard the way they want to be heard. I mean, look, You look at the way that Ali was viewed in the late 60s versus the way Ali was viewed when he was lighting the torch for the Olympic Games however many years ago. Like, he was one of the most hated men in America to one of the most beloved figures in the world. And I think a lot has to do with how that message was getting through and which avenues it was being taken.
And history too. History will show his fight about not going to Vietnam, and at that point, he wasn't very liked at that moment. But history showed later on they understood his perspective. So it took a long time, but in the moment, he was not celebrated as much as people think. Maybe in the black community he was, but not across the country.
You know, this has changed me a little bit, I think. It's sometime within the last 2 weeks when we were talking about the same thing, and I think it was in relation to Michael Jordan, that it's important to remember that the paycheck these guys get as professional athletes don't change who they are. I said, you know, they are who they are. You can't expect them to be more intelligent or more plugged in simply because they're professional athletes. But I've changed my perspective, I think, on this week because I realize there's a value in the unique ability they have to bring people together and to focus attention on something like this simply by showing up. To know that Jaylen Brown thought enough of this to drive from Boston to Atlanta to take part in a protest. I think over this past week I've learned that there's value in that I hadn't previously appreciated.
A platform. These athletes do not understand now that when you've got 20 million people following you, it's your platform. And let's use that platform for not just pushing product, for really pushing change. Because I might not have this platform as big as it is right now. I got all eyeballs on me. I got all people following me. And maybe I can make a change in my city or in my town or with my followers now that can have lasting change within this community. It's just, they didn't have that. Like Duffy said, they didn't have that back then. They were at the mercy of a reporter, hoping that a reporter for a newspaper would quote them correctly. They went on TV because they wanted to make sure the words came out of their mouths as opposed to being misquoted. Like Duffy said, you can go on Instagram and know exactly where LeBron James or any athlete sits and what their personal views are on what should be done.
Pat, I'll wrap this up asking you the same question I asked Tariq about, do you see this time being different?
I mean, if you're asking in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, look, you know, I'm in a unique situation with the marriage. I mean, like there are things that I was exposed to growing up that a lot of people that I know weren't exposed to. And I was very naive until, God, just a couple of years ago. You know, you think that your background is exactly like everyone else's background, right? Like I had friends from all over the city based on where I went to school, and I saw things and I figured, like, okay, everybody sees this kind of stuff. Yes, I mean, what I'm getting at is people that I know that never had that perspective this week got that perspective and are starting to speak differently and express things differently. And in that way, more than anything I've ever seen in my life, I think this is different.
Yeah, and I like what James Paxson of the New York Yankees had to say earlier this week, too. He said, Paxson's a white pitcher for the Yankees, and he said, I had no idea. He said, so, you know, I'm behind this cause. I'm going to sit back and listen. I want to hear these things. Thanks, guys. That was good input. I appreciate it. We are the Rochester Press Box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay & Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, Tariq Spence, Pat Duffy. Pat, Poyer, the defensive back, forget his first name. What's his first name?
Jordan Poyer. Yep.
Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer came out and said, like, he regrets the fact that Tom Brady has left the division because he never had a chance to beat him. I think he said he was 0-9, and the record against Brady was, obviously, it's like 3-29, something like that. Is there anything to that? Is there any part of you that wishes Brady was still in New England?
Yeah, a little bit of it. Look, I wanted him to be there for the decline, so when we get to beat him up a little bit, it's not going to happen, and we're going to have to watch him decline in Tampa Bay with all the hype that's happening now, and then watch the Patriots decline simultaneously as he's declining. Look, I'm happy he's gone. but I would have liked the Bills to be the one to dethrone him. In fact, I feel like what he did is a little bit of a cop-out. Like, he knew what was coming. He knew that he had something due to him, and then instead of standing pat, literally, with the team that he was dominant with, well, I'm going to get the heck out of here before the nuclear bomb goes off so I don't have to look like an idiot. I see that face, Tariq. I see that face, Tariq.
You 10% of the time, you beat Brady. Warrior, 0-9. You should be happy. Oh, what do you mean bittersweet? Bittersweet that he couldn't go 0-10 or 0-11 or 0-12 or 0-13? Get out of here. You had so many seasons to beat Tom Brady. And
but wasn't this the year?
Times.
This was the year, though. Buffalo was poised to do it.
This is ridiculous. He had your number. Be happy he's gone.
Okay, Tariq, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, yeah, that's why I want him there. That's why I want him there. So we can take that 3-26 and make it 5 and whatever. Like, I just want to watch him in agony. And I'm not talking physical agony. I want to see his little crying, pouty face when he's yelling at his offensive coordinator. What's going on? I don't know what's happening here. I don't like this. I want that in Orchard Park, and I want to see it happen. And now I'm not going to get that opportunity unless Buffalo beats Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl this year. Write it down.
With no fans in the stands.
Doesn't matter.
As you pointed out. Hey, quick look. I saw a list that listed all the worst quarterbacks in each franchise's history. They gave Buffalo's to Alex Van Pelt. Tariq, comment.
I think they should leave really alone. I think the really one is JP Lossman. is he worse, Duffy? I mean, I would leave that alone and defer to you on that.
JP Lossman wasn't even the worst quarterback that started in his rookie season or second season because he broke his ankle the first season. Alex Van Pelt is 5 quarterbacks away from the worst quarterback in Bills history. Like, Bill, last year, I wore a jersey of every Bills quarterback that I had that played between Jim Kelly and Josh Allen. And we went like 30 weeks with it. And you're going to name Alex Van Pelt as the worst quarterback in Bills history? Are you out of your mind? Are you nuts?
All right, we have the Rochester Press Box, and Like It or Not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, Tariq Spence, Pat Duffy. Tariq, it's inside of 100 days to the opening kickoff of the NFL season. What do you think that's going to look like?
I'm not. You know what? I'm not quite sure. I know we'll get into Bills camp because that's a bit of a disappointment. I'm not quite sure because it took 60 days for COVID-19 to come in and stop everything. They're talking about this second wave, which we were talking about off the air. I mean, this is still in the unknown factor. I know college football, they want to come back within the next week or so. We're still in the we're not quite sure perspective. I think we want games. I don't mind them with not fans in the stands, but it looks like we're not going to have spring training. We're not going to have fans in the stands for preseason games. It's going to affect, though, the team chemistry. That place, whatever facility they have to go through, they're going to have to wipe it down, test everybody coming in. It's going to be a totally different vibe. But I think we're so greedy and hungry for football, we'll take it.
So, Pat, I get the feeling that the NFL is looking at this as business as usual until it isn't. They're just going about things.
I understand why they're doing it, right? You don't want NFL fans to be disappointed until you absolutely have to disappoint them. But that's a double-edged sword because there are NFL fans, even in New York with what we're going through right now, that believe they're going to have tickets to go see the Bills play this season. And if they find out a week before that season starts that the NFL the entire time didn't think it was going to happen, you're going to cause a lot of anger. It's going to cause political kind of issues for all of the folks that didn't tell the NFL right away they couldn't do it. They're playing with fire here, man. They really are. And the fact that, Bill's training camp now isn't going to be happening in Rochester, according to all reports, that leads me to believe there's also not going to be anyone sitting in the stadium either.
All right, we are the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished Business is next.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. It's time for Unfinished Business. Pat Duffy starts us off.
So the last couple months have sucked. I mean, obviously because of what's going on in the world, but as a sports show, you could say also we have had no sports to watch at all for the first time in our lives. And I think we are going to get our payment for having to deal with lack of sports all of this time. The NBA announces that their season will be starting somewhere in August, September, early August, maybe mid-August, and the NBA Finals will be scheduled for the last game of October 12th, which means you have the potential for the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL all playing legitimate games at the same time, all at once. Every single night, a sporting event that matters of the week. I don't have to wait till Sunday. I don't have to wait till Thursday. I don't have to watch, 60, 70, 80 baseball games that don't matter, 30, 40 NBA games that don't matter. All of it, kit and caboodle, ready to go during the months of September and October. I know we've been through a lot, but hear me out. Maybe, just maybe, from a sports perspective, all that we lost will be worth it when we get it back all at once.
Thank goodness to the NBA, not for playing their season, but for actually being a part and listening to the community. Everyone from LeBron James to even Michael Jordan, who hardly ever made any political statements playing, have made political statements recently with the recent events. Which brings me to the NFL, who avoided Colin Kaepernick at all costs and allowed the narrative of him kneeling to be rewritten of disrespecting the flag. For the 1 billionth time, it wasn't about disrespecting the flag. It was about justice for unarmed Black people that were dying and to prevent George Floyd from ever happening in the first place. Instead of understanding that, Colin Kaepernick was ostracized, and the number one sport in the country wouldn't listen to him. Owners wouldn't give him a chance to be on an NFL roster, despite needing a quarterback at those positions in the NFL. What's great about sports is that if there are rules that are violated and there's an unfair advantage, there's always some sort of penalty. We like to teach sports through life and life through sports, which brings me to a question of, if we want to do that in sports, why can't we do this in real life? We love to compare sports to real life and the life lessons that people go through, teamwork and communication. The last time I checked about communication, listening is just as important as talking. So the NFL blew it, and their failure to do nothing has led to a lifetime of hypocritical sports takes of all the life lessons we've been taught. And if you're sick of hearing about these stories, it's nothing compared to living to them. So the NFL may be the number one sport, but the NBA is tackling real topics.
Sports people matter. It's been 27 years since Charles Barkley uttered the immortal phrases, "I'm not a role model." Well, out of that came a national discussion of who should be role models. And it turns out Charles Barkley was a pretty good role model. These days, you're hearing phrases like advancing the discussion and increasing public awareness. These are as empty as the thoughts and prayers line. You need decisions, and you need to decide what you're going to do to make this whole situation, the civil unrest, better. So here's what I do. Going back to Charles Barkley, I would put Charles Barkley, Mark Cuban, who has demonstrated an ability to get things done, Roland Williams for a little local flavor, a guy who came from Genesee Street, made the NFL, and now operates the Champions Academy, and the aforementioned Colin Kaepernick, in a room together, come up with a workable solution. Get it sponsored by a guy like Jim Clyburn out of South Carolina and bring it to Congress. And you know what? It won't pass. Not with the current government we have right now, but it will make people decide whether you're in or whether you're out. And then come election time in November, we make an educated decision. And then after those elections, we can try it again. That's Unfinished Business, and that is our show. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
As always, good to talk to you guys about issues in sports and beyond, too. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a good show. Pat, thank you.
I'm going to go get out of this really tight jersey. I'm having trouble breathing. But great job, guys. Good to see you.
All righty. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.